Hi, I'm Ken Oakes at Oakes Daylilies. I'm here in our display garden in East Tennessee. It's the middle of May. And in this video, I'm just going to talk about our display garden, maybe a little history about it, what we do here, our Daylily Festival, and then some questions that we get from folks who visit. So stay tuned. So I'm going to start with just a little history of the display garden. Back in the day, 30 years ago or so, when my father and grandfather started growing daylilies, they grew them all in front of the house, and folks would come out in the summer when they were blooming, and they'd say, I like this one or this one, and that was my first high school job. I would dig it up, put it in a bag, and send it home with them, which was fine until we got too busy. I couldn't keep up, and also the garden looked like it had been dug out of, which it had, so a lot of holes and didn't look as good. So we decided to make a dedicated display garden that we don't dig out of, right? So this is just for display. We plant these here just, to look at, and we grow everything just up the road a little bit. So that's why we have a display garden like we have it, just for this. Just a little bit more about our growing fields. There's about 40 acres or so up there where we grow everything. And it's a little different. You'll notice behind me that these are done in beds with paths to walk through in between. Obviously that's not the same in the growing fields. And these are raised beds, and we'll talk about that in a minute, why we did that here in the garden. So this is really nice in the summer, and we host the Daylily Festival, as it's turned out. So we kind of have an event. This will be our 26th annual Daylily Festival here in 2025. So that's the last weekend in June every year when the daylilies here are going to be in peak bloom. Okay, so start with the raised beds. Why do we do raised beds here in the garden? Daylilies are a really easy plant to grow, and they're really adaptable to a wide range of soils. And typically we say that for the most part you don't have to do anything to your soil unless you have some kind of an unusual soil situation, which we kind of did here. This building off behind me there to the left, that's actually a spring house. If you look inside, there's kind of interesting. There's concrete trays where you put, they used to put milk jugs, from the dairy here to keep the milk cool. But in any case, the water that came out of the spring house used to just flow right through where this pond is. There didn't used to be a pond, and it was a big marshy area, really where the cattle wandered through it, and it was a big mess. So we dug it all out, dug the pond out, and the soil that came out of that marshy area is what we're standing on right now. And it was gray and just not good soil. It was gray and heavy, and so that's why we felt like we needed to do raised beds. I mentioned that we grow most of our daylilies up the road at the growing fields, and that's really good soil up there. So we just work that up and plant straight in it, which is what most folks do in their yard. But if you happen to have a special soil circumstance, I know a lot of folks down in Florida where the soil is really sandy, they may do raised beds, incorporate some organic material, or just bring in some soil. That's a possibility. So we have found with the raised beds, there are a few benefits. It's worked out well that the paths in between the raised beds work out really good for our garden visitors. And then it's been nice to have the daylilies raised up just a little bit, so a little easier to see. And then it's been easier to get to the weeds. And yes, we do have weeds. So it's a little easier to get to if they're a little higher up. So a little more information about the display garden. We've got over 800 different varieties here. So definitely a lot to look at. And while certainly some of them are similar, one of the great things about daylilies is they come in every color except blue, all sorts of shapes and sizes. And so it's 800 more or less different varieties. So it's a lot to look at if you get a chance to come out. We have a block of most things. I planted 9 to make a little display block. But then we do have a lot of, we put our newer things here, and what I mean by newer varieties is we try and buy new things in every year from folks around the country who create new daylily varieties. They really know what they're doing. They come up with some beautiful stuff. So we try and buy what we hope might be some of the best, and we'll plant them here and keep an eye on them. So if you get to come out to the gardens, you can see some of the newer daylily varieties out there, and get a taste for what's coming down the road. Those will be marked not for sale, so just be prepared. They're just here for display. We have a couple special collections here. Daylilies, like I mentioned, come in different shapes and sizes, and one of the different shapes they call spider types, which is the ones with the long, thin petals, kind of like the legs of a spider. We've probably got 120 varieties or so in some beds off to one end of the garden here. And then the other unusual shape is the doubles. They're kind of like as the name implies, they've got an extra set of petals on there, so they're kind of fluffy, more like a bloom of a peony might be. We've got a display bed of those. And then the highest award that is given out for daylilies is the Stout Medal. And so we have a collection of all the Stout Medal winners that you can see all the way back from, I guess it was the 40s, all the way up until, just the last years or two. So this is shooting this video in May of 2025, and we redid most of the garden last fall, last September and on into early October. And we did that for a couple of reasons. First off, the clumps get really big over a few years, and I'm in the business of growing daylilies to sell, so I take up the big clumps and divide them down. But also, we get new varieties over time, and so I like to have an opportunity to, bring new things in and just rework it all. And it's always exciting when we do that. I just do it every, 5 or 6 years, probably, if that often. So this year everything's all mixed up, a whole bunch of new stuff in here. So if you've been here before, that's an excuse to come back. I try and plant a really big plant when we redo the garden. Really, basically what we sell, the size that we sell, which is has at least 3 fans, a triple fan. So all of this stuff was planted last year, and you can just see how it's settled in and looks really good. I think it's going to look really good this summer. And I've got a few beds over behind me there that we did not rework last year, and you can tell they're quite a bit bigger. I'll rework those this fall. We just didn't get to it last year. So that's kind of why we redid everything. But if you hadn't been before, come back and see it. It's all new. So I've mentioned a couple times that we host a Daylily Festival out here each year. We do that the last Friday and Saturday in June each year, because that's typically around when peak bloom time is in our area. So admission's free, parking's free, so bring the family, come on out. It's a really low-key event. We've got food available, and then we have potted daylilies for sale, and then we have a daylily plant sale where we dig up about 50 varieties, and those are all at sale prices available to take with you. And then if you see something else here in the garden that you would like to get, we'll ship it to you for free if you order it at the festival. So, if you happen to be in the area the last Friday, Saturday in June, we'd love for you to stop by. So speaking of the festival, we have a video just about that if you want to check that out. We've got lots of other videos about all things daylily if you want to visit our YouTube page, and you can check all those out. We've been growing daylilies for over 40 years, so we'd like to talk about all things daylily. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to put them below, or our contact information is on the website and you can reach out to us that way. We'd love to hear from you, and thanks for watching.